In the previous lesson, we looked at loading and communicating with the server, getting back some dynamic content using AJAX. So in this lesson, we're going to talk about that as well, getting dynamic content from the server. But this time, that AJAX file is actually going to build out, or that AJAX connection is going to connect to a JSON file, and it's going to build out all of these questions that we have, and it's going to dynamically create this quiz that we've created. So this is all just using AJAX, JSON, and JavaScript. So now we're going to go through the code, and the code for this document, the HTML is going to be very straightforward. All we have is ID equals output. We are actually using Bootstrap. So Bootstrap is just allowing us to have a little bit more styling and some more visually appealing parts to our form. So it's actually not necessary. So if I just remove that out, and if I go back out to the form and if I refresh it, it's going to look slightly different. So it's not as styled. And if you're not familiar with Bootstrap, we do have another course that we talk about Bootstrap in as well. And it really does work where it allows you to create content, really nice content quickly. It's a CSS, HTML, JavaScript framework that really does save you a lot of time. So it is worthwhile looking into. It allows you for responsive design. So what we've done here is we've just got our output, and here we're connecting. So initially what we've done in previous courses, where we've got our JSON.js, and then we're able to parse out all that information from that JSON data file. So we've got something like JSON.js. So what this is just setting up a data object, and it's giving us information within that object. So we could literally just bring this in to our file as well, and we could parse it out as JSON. And when we do that, we see here when we do load that page, sorry, I had forgotten to uncomment those, so I'm just going to refresh that out into the console. And this is just for demonstration purposes. This isn't actually the JSON file we're going to be using. But you can see here that unparsed, it's not a really usable format for objects, but when we do parse it, we see that it does become a usable format for objects. So we're able to go through these different objects, we're able to pick out something like content and content header, and we're able to build out all of this information into a HTML page. So we've just got an example of that here, where if we want to build out, get JSON page, we can look at, now that we've brought this in as an object, and we can go to page, we can see main page. So this is going to be JSON.page is going to equal main page. And when I refresh that out, we should see that within our console log here that we do have main page. So what it's doing is it's placed all this JSON type data as an object, and it makes it a usable object within JavaScript. And when I go over to a site like JSON.lint, you can see that it's not going to quite work really well, because we do still have that variable data. This is still a JavaScript file. And when I do copy this code out and I go over to JSON.lint, we're going to get some errors here. And that's because we're defining this JSON value. So if we were to remove out the var variable data, we could just do that by setting it like that. And when we validate it, it does become valid JSON. But the problem is that if I was to copy and paste this out like this, it isn't a readable JavaScript file anymore. So now if I was go back out to that local host, I see that I'm going to get some errors here, because no longer is this file readable within JavaScript, because it's not setting it as an object or a readable object. So I have to actually go back and format it this way, because remember, this is still a JavaScript file, and which makes this really not the most ideal way to get the code onto the page. So although it will work, it's not the most ideal way to use a JSON data on your page itself, because you are just setting a value, an object, and you're working through it that way. So we're going to just comment out all of that because we're not going to really need to work with it. I'm just going to bring all of that out of the file, and we're going to actually be working with our JSON, our quiz JSON file. So that's going to be located on our server as well. As you can see here, when you go over to quiz.json, it's a very readable format. And if I was to actually take all of that out, and if I bring it over to the JSON lint and I validate it, it does come back as valid JSON. So this is a good way to work with JSON, but we're going to have to use AJAX to pull in this JSON data in order to make it usable within JavaScript. So we're going to be showing you how to do that in the upcoming lessons.